at paulharrell.com.
Program, it's hour number 2. Congratulations, you found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. The phone number, call us, text us, 870-275-9799. I want to welcome to the program a man by the name of Bobby Long. Bobby, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, sir. Glad that you're with us. Now, this time, 24 hours ago, we were playing your speech. Bobby Long is a Jonesboro alderman or city councilman. What ward do you represent?
Ward 6, Position 1.
Okay. When did you first hear that the Jonesboro City Council was going to try to do the Municipal League's bidding and pass a resolution urging Asa Hutchinson to call a special session to increase or create a new internet tax?
About, I guess, three to 4 days prior to the meeting. You know, they'd already done one resolution before that was going to our federal our senators.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'd already done one, and I was the sole opposition to that resolution. I wasn't as prepared as I was the other night, though.
Okay.
And when I figured that out, you know, I thought, yeah, I've got to speak up against
the sole
that.
opposition. Then last night, though, it did, or two nights ago, it passed 8-4. So you and 3 other colleagues voted against that. Who are those 3 other colleagues?
Gosh, I can't remember offhand.
Okay, well, that's okay. We can get it later.
The first time, though, I was the only one that voted no for the first one. So I think we're making headway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, apparently something I said or something that they had realized in between the last one and this one, you know, got them to come around to reason, you know, and vote against this resolution.
I think maybe one of the reasons is your side comment there when they got ready to vote, or I think it was just kind of a transition. It was after the mayor's comments, who's supportive of this measure, and you said, I just want to make the point that this resolution or this idea failed in the General Assembly in the last session just a few months ago. What do you make of that when you have state representatives from Northeast Arkansas like Dan Sullivan, Brant Smith, Jack Ladyman, Dwight Tosh voting against the internet sales tax, and then other elected representatives over the same area are now trying to undermine the people's representatives?
You know, here's the thing, and I tell this to my kids, I tell it to my wife all the time. When you try to make sense out of an unreasonable position, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You know, so Brant Smith and Dan Sullivan, those guys that voted against that, they know, because I get their Facebook posts and things like that, and they do have a pulse, I think, on the community, and they know what the people want. And it was even reflected in the polls that I cited the other night. I have absolutely no idea how an elected official, knowing that if it was going to go to the vote, to the people for a vote, and it would be just obliterated. It would be. There would be, just like the last time they tried to increase the tax on the people. It failed.
Yeah,
in Jonesboro.
Terribly.
Yes.
Yeah, massively. Embarrassingly so.
Yes. So why in the world would an elected official vote to support and push forward something that they know the people that they represent don't want? I'm not a I'm not a career politician. This was my first stab at
tell us your background. So your first run for office and you won the first time. All right. So tell us what made you want to be a city councilman.
Gosh, ever since I was old enough, my dad was like that, and my dad is like that. You know, if there's something that needs to be done, he just goes and does it. You know, if there's something that needs to be done, he steps up and takes over if no one else will. And he's always been that, and I saw that as something I grew up with. So when I got older, you know, I was always, you know, if something needed to be done, no one else would do it, I'd just do it. And I still am like that. You know, I don't mind taking the reins. I don't mind being a voice. I don't mind speaking out for those things that I feel passionate about. And so, you know, that's what I did. And when we moved back to Jonesboro multiple years ago, decades ago, I know that this was where I was going to raise my family.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I knew good and well that I wanted to be a part of how this city grew
Of
and how
course.
this city was going to go.
There's a lot of bad ideas out there.
There is. And I thought, if I could just gather the support, I knew there's people out there that thought like I did, that had my same values, my same convictions, and my same beliefs. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give this a shot and see what happens.
Yeah, that's good. What was your background before? So what do you do now?
When I came back to Jonesboro, I was executive director of a PHO, a physician hospital organization, where we contracted managed care contracts for hospitals and physician panels. I've been an HR director for the last 15 years and done a lot of other things, in that capacity. And a matter of fact,
the maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul. Congratulations, you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. And if you want to help us do that, one of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us 870-275-9799. Of course, the news out of Washington, D.C. So far is positive. The Senate voted 51-50 to proceed with health care debate. Now, that does not mean that this has been repealed yet. It just means now they're opening debate. It doesn't mean that those 51 votes are going to be a guarantee when they do decide to repeal, or they decide to repeal and replace. The Wall Street Journal, they are, let's see here. Yeah, the Wall Street Journal is reporting next up would be a vote on a bill repealing large swaths of the Affordable Care Act, with a 2-year delay, which senators could use to work out a replacement. It's identical to a repeal bill passed by both chambers of Congress in 2015, which then President Barack Obama vetoed. The repeal-only bill is expected to fail, with 3 senators, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, already declared opposed. Finally, the leader is expected to offer what's been dubbed a skinny repeal bill, which would undo the ACA's penalties against individuals who don't purchase health insurance and employers who don't offer it, along with a tax on medical devices. If the skinny repeal passes, it would allow Senate and House leaders to strike a compromise proposal through a process called a conference. Okay, so that's where we are at the moment there. Of course, Senator Tom Cotton, Senator John Boozman voting to go ahead with debate, as many of you expected they would, as I expected they would. This is, of course, not good news if you're a liberal in Arkansas. It's not good news if you're Governor Asa Hutchinson, because, of course, the governor has been against this. We've got Democrat Gazette headlines that say so, talk about how they are for the repeal and the straight, clean repeal, as a matter of fact. And Governor Asa Hutchinson is not for the clean, straight repeal. But just to kind of give you a little bit aside, John Brummett, articles aside, John Brummett has a very interesting piece where he is extremely upset at Tom Cotton and John Boozman. And I think they should wear that with a badge of honor. if John Brummett is coming after you, Senator Cotton, Senator Bozeman, you are doing something right. If John Brummett is sticking up for Asa Hutchinson the way he is, then politically, political ideology-wise, you're doing something wrong. I mean, or at least you're implementing the leftist ideology if you're Asa, and John Brummett can't say enough nice things about you. But, I mean, even if you take to Twitter, you got people like, I found this interesting. Look what they're doing to Tom Cotton on Twitter here. It's ridiculous. You have somebody from this group, Moms Demand. They're very, I consider them anti-Second Amendment. They dispute that. Moms Demand Action. They want, they want the government to control more and more of your gun rights. You've got somebody named Julie. Julie on Twitter. She's sticking up for Asa Hutchinson. And you see that right there about Tom Cotton. It's a meme that they're making. Medicaid, and they're upset that they don't have a picture of Tom Cotton where he looks more confused than that. Matter of fact, if that's the worst picture of Tom Cotton, quote, looking confused, end quote, then he just looks like he's a serious man in this photo. Medicaid. This is what the meme says, with question marks in the background. Medicaid. $500 million per year gone. Let them eat cotton. The tweet actually says, at Asa Hutchinson says, that $500 million cut to Medicaid would be devastating. Senator Cotton, let them eat cotton. They're trying to promote this hashtag to try to make him, seem like, French, I guess. Let them eat cake, right? But if you scroll down here, because anytime you have people, what I consider to be on the left, anytime they are out there supporting a Republican governor and criticizing our Arkansas Republican senators who are simply doing exactly what the people voted them in there to do, anytime that happens, I try to look at their other tweets. Who exactly are they, right? And so if you keep going down here, we eventually get to a tweet where she retweeted this person sticking up for Asa, criticizing Tom and John. Topher Spiro. She tweet. Is that who it is? Hang on. Maybe I've lost it here. It was the one that had to do with the worst night of their lives. You see that tweet where she retweeted? No. Yeah. No, it was Ian Millheiser. Today's vote is preliminary. Thousands of lives can be saved if every yes vote has the worst night of their life tonight. That was retweeted by her 3 hours ago. What exactly is that supposed to mean? Anyway, it's funny when you kind of see who endorses what message on Twitter. And then, because, I'm sure, look, let's be honest about this. If you are a Republican in a position of power, like the governor, and you're masquerading as a conservative, but you're really not, and somebody on Twitter sticking up for you, you would really want that person to be a conservative, right? You would want people trying to okay, what does this person actually believe? When you get to that point, you start saying, oh, well, no, you're politically to the left, at the very least. And here's a governor who at least campaigns and tries to tell people, no, I'm on the right. Well, that's just not the case. And you see it. There's all these evidence. I mean, and we talked about this yesterday, but why does the liberal media hate Trump so much? Well, let's not even ask the question why. They disagree with him, right? There's nothing but disdain from the liberal media, from the media in general, towards Donald Trump. But statewide media here in Arkansas has nothing but praise. Mainstream media in Arkansas has nothing but praise for Governor Asa Hutchinson. What's wrong with that equation? What's wrong with that picture? Why is that the case? Folks, our telephone number, if you want to call us or text us today, is 870-275-9799. My name is Paul, and this is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Okay. Coming up at the top of next hour, we're going to be talking with Mr. David Crow. Going to be previewing the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance fall convention that's coming up. Liberty doesn't matter. If you want to buy tickets, I mean, you're going to want to buy them after you hear David Crow talk. But if you want to buy tickets right now, you go to facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. It's going to be in Little Rock, and it's going to be a great time. And you can do that, facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. What's pinned to the top of the page. And we'll be talking with David Crow here in an hour to get another take on really the events of the day and everything like that. So on Friday, I was broadcasting live from the Capitol Hotel in Little Rock. It was the Conduit for Commerce Calvin Coolidge Awards. And it was a fantastic event seeing so many conservative legislators get nominated. Get not even just nominated, get awards, get honored and respected for their stance for conservatism down in Little Rock at the the 91st General Assembly, which amazingly saw Republicans try to grow government every chance they could get, and then you had a few of them that were able to slow things down, to stop some of the tax increases that were proposed by Republicans. We didn't get to stop them all because we had a new tire tax. We got a new tax on digital downloads that they passed. You got an increase in the current tire tax. They decided to create an entirely new bureaucracy surrounding cradle-to-grave tire tracking systems to save us from the Zika virus, because tires, when they're stored in landfills, can store water, and that can breed mosquitoes. That was in the bill, by the way, that they passed. That they were afraid. That's one of the reasons they have to create, in its infancy, a cradle-to-grave tire tracking system. And, of course, there's going to be some company that's going to get a lucrative government contract out of disposing of the tires, keeping track of all of this. I'm sure the software, when they eventually get it right, to do all this stuff. Of course, they have to increase your current tire tax, your mounting fee, and then they had to create a dismounting fee. And so they really needed money to fund all of that. But it was really good to see a lot of really just heroes of liberty, heroes of freedom. Senator Brian King was there. Senator Brian King was there, and he got an award, and he got a great applause and ovation, and he gave a speech. And it was one of the best speeches I think I've heard in a long time. Let's cue this up. This is Senator Brian King from the Calvin Coolidge Awards on Friday evening, shortly after we ended our broadcasting time for that day. Take a listen.
Brenda, as you know, getting me down here to Little Rock on a Friday night was a big thing, and it's just, what the work you guys do, and David, and talk about being elected. I was around when David was actually employed down there. I don't think anybody else here was, but I was. But it's really been something I kind of thinking back, and I've been involved in first campaigns back over 20 years ago, and so you think about 20 years, and it's really a lot of things have happened since then, but it's kind of like I'll tell a little bit of a story about the other day here not too long ago. I bought another horse and went to riding his great horse. Well, my great uncle, who's 102 years old, still living, he drove up until he was 99 years old. He was my grandfather's best friend. And so I rode that horse over there because he had a great horse. Dan was his name. So I want to go over there and show him while he still had some memory. And he still has some memories, like I said, having some issues, but I just love and go hear the stories that he tells. Because he grew up in the Depression. I'm going to tell you, they grew up tough. I mean, everybody sits there and says, oh, God, it's so tough now and everything. You don't have it tough. Give me a break. My grandfather and him, growing up, had it tough. And they told these stories. And I just still love hearing them. And I remember the story of my grandmother, and I went over there and told him the other day that my grandmother told, but the big thing when she was a child in the Green Forest was the Confederate reunion that they would have. And it was a big celebration. And she always talked about it because she said Union veterans would show up too. And she always would say, the ones that actually fought in the Civil War would fight less about the Civil War today. It was kind of funny. So I went over there and I talked to Uncle Clay about it. And I said, do you remember that? Because the big story about that was there's a bunch of Floyds over at Berryville, around Berryville. And Pretty Boy Floyd showed up that night. That was always the story they told. And he danced around, paid for all the food, the law enforcement was there, they didn't bother him. He met his demise later in Ohio, but they always told that story, and he told that story. So I ride the horse over there, and he still wants to ride a horse and everything. And I just said, well, Uncle Clay, what are you going to do for the next century, He said, well, I'm going to get married. I'm like, what? You going to get married? What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm going to get married. I said, who in the world are you going to marry? So I'm marrying a 20-year-old aerobics instructor. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You're marrying a 20-year-old aerobics instructor? I said, my God, that can be fatal. He looked at me, he said, well, she dies, she dies. But, I mean, it's amazing what...
Oh, that's Senator Brian King. It was a great night. It was a great night, great event. We're going to take a break, but that's not the best part, though. He went on. You see, there was another person who spoke before him, and it was the former head of the Bureau of Legislative Research. Been on the show on Friday, Mr. David Ferguson. He talked about the single most important thing to get control of in Little Rock is the budget. He talked about how for a long time it's just controlled by a select few group of folks. Even though we have a fiscal session, they never thought that was going to pass constitutionally. And the good old boy system is alive and well at the Swamp in Little Rock. And so Brian King addressed that. And what Senator King goes on to say is one of the most no-nonsense senators who tells the truth. He tells the truth. It was just such a revealing, honest, pure moment from the Calvin Coolidge Awards last Friday. I'm going to let you listen to it, so don't go anywhere. The number 870-275-9799. Back in just a moment. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works Obamacare private option, has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are two matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody. Broadcasting across Arkansas and holding politicians accountable for what they say and do. The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, we're going to pick up here from the Calvin Coolidge Awards last Friday. Senator Brian King accepting his award and giving a speech. Really good, really about the general climate in Arkansas. And I think you know how just from listening to this, if you haven't ever listened to him, you'll understand why he's able to take the tough votes. Go ahead, Joe.
What he did in his lifetime and what they did and the direction that they've taken things. And folks, it's about going a direction. And like I said, they talked about the longest person in the legislature. And you know, if I've stumbled or fell, or there things, Debbie and I have talked, had a lot of discussions, and we disagree on a few things. But we've always been went in one direction. And so when David hit on the budget, that has been the one thing. You talk about the new members that come in. I want to tell you about the budget. When the governor came back and had to cut the budget, and he made the comment that I couldn't believe was that, well, you know, we don't have a spending problem, we just have a revenue problem. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, that means I can go to Bass Pro Shop, spend the money, and when I can't pay the bills, I just say, you know what, I can't pay it, I didn't spend too much, I just didn't have enough money. And David hit on everything that I had been saying on, and it is so ignored and everything like that, that the number one thing down there is the budget. And so I went back, since I'm not the most popular, I think I probably have the most target on me, and that's fine, let them come. And so I went back and figured out, if I went to office and had we grown state government spending at 1.5%, do you know what kind of surplus, if we'd eliminated it to 1.5 growth, not cut, do you know what kind of surplus we'd have today? $5.5 billion surplus. Wow. We could run state government for 1 year without ever having to do anything. So when you have these decisions out there about raising taxes for highways and everything that they're trying to say, and they try and act like spending is not the problem. No, that's not true. That's misleading people. Do you know what the biggest growth in state government by far during that time? Medicaid. And when I came into office, we spent $3.145 billion on Medicaid. This is why when you see Brian Kane and Twitter and they come after me, fine, come on, boys. Let's talk about the facts and what your voting record is and what mine is. And we spent $3.145 billion on Medicaid. You know what we spent last year? $7.2 billion. It's more than double. All these guys that have been saying everything back when we were in there in 2013, oh my God, if we expand Medicaid and we do all this stuff, it's going to be this great economic boom and everything like that. We're not doing that. Barely have a surplus. You don't even call $50 million on that a surplus. And we're not having that boom. Everything that they promised, and now it's the new things. It's like you tell something, you get in trouble, you tell something else, and you just keep leading to the point that you keep making, because you know what? Right now, with what they're doing, they're just putting the loot in the next generation. As Mark Moore says in this thing, we're just looting the next generation, paying for our mistakes today, and what we do today is put on the next generation. So, some of these things that I've been seeing in the Medicaid disclosure bills was about, I call it, it's probably a stretch, I'll just say that, is the Medicaid mafia. The ones that come up there and line the committees and line the things and sit there and take all this Medicaid money, spend literally thousands and thousands of dollars. They don't want to disclose how much they spend on lobbying. We give them all their tax dollars. They don't want to disclose how much they spend on lobbying to get that money. What doesn't always happen up there at the Capitol doesn't translate out with the people, because people sit there and say, well, Brian King's angry or something like that. They don't talk about the figures and the numbers and everything else like that. And sometimes I don't vote, and the last few years I've had a lot of family issues, and I have missed some votes. That's a fair criticism. Nothing I haven't told my district. But I always say, sometimes not voting or staying from voting, 1.5% growth. His budget that he proposed was 2.9% growth for this next year, and 4.9% growth the next year to make his balanced budget work to pay for everything he's doing. And you think about the crime issue that we have and why we're not, the biggest savings that Governor Hutchinson is doing right now when he talks about transformation, saving government, they're letting out 700 prisoners early a quarter, folks, that are not serving their sentences out.
Stop. We're going to get to the rest of this later. We're up against the hard break, folks. Again, that was Senator Brian King, his speech. And, of course, he mentioned the Medicaid mafia, the Medicaid disclosure bill that he filed and got out of Senate committee, got out of the Senate, died in the House. It would have required legislators to disclose if they get any money with, their private businesses or from consulting, to being a consultant from the Medicaid industry. We're talking about $2 billion that came into this program, came into this state from 2012 to 2013. We got to take a break, folks. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
You know,
how did you get your limited government views? I'm curious. Because, just no offense, but, I don't know. Are there a lot of limited government people writing managed care contracts? I mean, maybe. It's some,
Well, here's
I
the
don't
thing.
know.
And I wrote that in a post today. My beliefs, convictions, and values did not come from my political beliefs. My political beliefs sprang from my Christian background. And my conservative background, my mom and dad are conservative. They believed in paying for what you got. They didn't overspend. They believed in personal responsibility. You take control. If you fail, own it.
Yeah.
If you succeed, share in your successes.
Right. Okay.
So that's sort of where I got that. And, I work so hard for what we have. I don't like to see waste. I can't stand it. And I can't stand when people say they're going to do something, but then they don't do it. Or they campaign on something, but then go out and do the the opposite.
You suggested in your comments yesterday, before the city council, or I guess on Tuesday, we played them yesterday, that, or was it on Tuesday? Right. So what's today, Thursday?
Yes, it's Tuesday.
So I played it yesterday, it was Wednesday. I'm sorry, I'm confused. But you suggested that the money that government is getting now isn't necessarily spent appropriately, or that they're wasting, in many cases, the resources we're already giving them. So why should we allow them to take $100 million or more out of our pockets?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I don't understand that. It's like if I was a retailer, I would be almost appalled at this. Because when you've got somebody coming in, let's say I got $10 in my pocket, I would much rather have the profit margin that $10 could buy in my store than the fraction of amount of benefit that I'm going to get from a tax dollar going to the state. And to say that is going to be something good for the retailers to take $100 million of buying power, and that's net money. That's not gross. That's net money. That is, I can spend it, or I don't have to.
Yeah.
When you take $100 million out of that and shift it to the government, now I don't have any control over where that money's spent. Zero. None. I don't have an option of going and spending it at Gearhead, or going in and spending it at Skinny J's, or going and spending it at a local restaurant, or wherever. I don't have that option anymore. And if I was a local retailer, I would much rather have that money in the pockets of somebody that could come and walk into my store and spend it than to have it in the coffers of Little Rock, so that they can spend it on.
You said it was a ruse in your comments, and I thought that was a perfect way, because they're trying, the mayor of Jonesboro, and this is going on in other cities too, because the municipal league has all of them. It's the city's lobbying arm, essentially, is what the municipal league is, and they're trying to lobby for this more money. You called it a ruse, and it is. The mayor says that e-fairness is critical to the survival of small business. And I don't agree with that at all. I think that's completely inaccurate.
I do too. Matter of fact, I know of small businesses right now that are brick and mortar that depend on their internet traffic. When their business is slow in walk-through traffic, they may be over there shipping up things that they've sold on the internet.
Yes.
And it doesn't. Every single retailer in Jonesboro has that option. They can set up an.
Need to get something off your chest? Then call or text Paul now, 870-275-9799.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. I'd like to give another shout-out to our new affiliate, day number 2, to KFPW, the Marshall. We appreciate you guys listening. What do we have here? Somebody writes in, watching from Randolph County again this week. Good things ahead. People are standing up, speaking out. Thanks, Paul. I'm sorry, I got emergency flash flood warning on my phone. I can't read the rest of the text. Thanks, Paul, for your fortitude and coverage in Arkansas. Levita Jones. Well, Levita from Randolph, we appreciate you listening to the program. We really do. I do want to finish up with this audio, though, from the Calvin Coolidge Awards on Friday. Oh, I have a meme. It's we're going to post it later on this week, but it's a photo of Calvin Coolidge. And it says at the top, Ronald Reagan, ? I've been making conservatism cool since 1923. It's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, hipster Calvin. That's right. But I want to finish up. So Brian King goes in his speech at the awards. He goes into talking about the crime problem that we have, and that's what he's talking about. That we're saving the most money right now by turning out 700 prisoners early. Can you back it up just a hair, Joe, on that file there, just so we can hear Senator King say that again, because this is kind of a new beat, if you will, in his speech. Take a listen.
Angry or something like that. They don't talk about the figures and the numbers and everything else like that. And sometimes I don't vote, and the last few years I've had a lot of family issues. I have missed some votes. That's a fair criticism. Nothing I haven't told my district. I always say, sometimes not voting or staying from voting, 1.5% growth. His budget that he proposed was 2.9% growth for this next year, and 4.9% growth the next year to make his balanced budget work to pay for everything he's doing. And you think about the crime issue that we have and why we're not, the biggest savings that Governor Hutchinson is doing right now when he talks about transformation, saving government.
Here it is.
They're letting out 700 prisoners early a quarter, folks. They're not serving their sentences out. People on 4th, 5th, 10th, 10-year times to ALC, and they turn around and serve 6 months on that. Do you know where most 60, 70%, easily 75% maybe of those early releasees are turned back to? Pulaski County. Where's the biggest crime problem? Where's the worst thing? So when the governor talks about saving money, that's his biggest savings that he's doing. It's not incarcerating people to make our community safe. So, as David said, he just said, talked about how people back then, when he was there and he talked about the budget, that is the number one thing that drives everything we do. The amount of tax cuts that we do, and you cannot increase spending to the level. And a lot of times when people say, well, you're not expanding something, you're saying no. Well, we wind up saying yes to other things because they managed the budget back then to have a surplus. I mean, can you imagine today if we had a $320 million surplus, we wouldn't need to raise taxes for highways. We wouldn't even have to do that. But you have to get in there and make the tough decisions and unpopular. And the biggest thing in Medicaid that I see down there that concerns me is, like I said, and it's probably an over-characterization. Hey, wind up not being. It's the Medicaid mafia down there that is down there every day trying to give you campaign contributions, trying to influence you and say, we don't want these bills that expose how much money we have to pay, how much money we get from taxpayers that we use to lobby you to give us more. So, it's just Donald Trump hit on something. And that is that the way of doing business is not popular out there with people. It's not the right direction that we need to go. So like I said, if you're in the legislature, look at the next 10 years. It's hard to when you're just in 2 to 4 year terms or something like that. But David actually hit right on what we should do about spending together. So thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Senator Brian King from the Calvin Coolidge Awards on Friday. Did a really good job. I will tell you this. He was at the top of the list. He and Linda Collins Smith, Brian King was on the Conduit for Commerce scorecard, which is that scorecard is what the Calvin Coolidge Awards are actually based on. And it was a great event. A lot of people were there. You know who was there? You know who was at the Conduit for Commerce Calvin Coolidge Awards? The Chief Justice of the Arkansas Supreme Court, Dan Kemp, was there. And it was good to see him again. He was on the show back when he was running. It was just good to see him, in the room and just in attendance. You know what I mean? That was pretty cool. But recently, speaking of scorecards, recently there was a new scorecard that came out. And it was the American Conservative Union scorecard. And who they ranked because there's a lot of talk about, how do you score absent votes and things like that. I mean, first of all, not voting in any circumstance, especially when you have a Republican majority or Republican leadership that keeps trying to grow government, that's a no vote. So you're actually voting no. You're voting I don't want to grow the size of government in a way. But, I understand the criticism, but the American Conservative Union ranked Senator Brian King number 1, ranked him first in their scorecard, which is something that's interesting. And there's other people that got good scores on that as well. Folks, the telephone number, if you want to call us, text us, let us know what's going on, 870-275-9799 is the telephone number. 870-275-9799. Okay, let's go now to finally, we're going to get to the Conduit 4 Action article that we've kind of put off for the last 24 hours. We've mentioned it to you, but it's time to talk about this. This is something that people are going to feel strongly about one way or the other, but I do feel like there's some folks that maybe haven't heard the all of the arguments. Some of you are going to say, Paul, the internet sales tax, the lack of an internet sales tax is not fair because brick and mortar businesses are having to collect it, but internet businesses are not. And that's an argument we could have. That's an argument that I welcome. If that's the only argument, I welcome that argument. I think it's great. My argument would be an internet business is not the same as a brick and mortar business. My argument would be if you're talking about the advantage that an internet business has over mom and pop stores, well, Arkansas mom and pop stores or small businesses, they have that advantage when they ship something to another state that they don't have a physical presence in. So we actually have an even playing field. If you want to sell stuff on the internet, you're going to be treated like anybody else. If you want to have a brick and mortar business, you're going to be treated like brick and mortar businesses. Now, I know, look, that's an argument to be had. That's an argument to be had. But where I can't tolerate it, where I can't go, is where people say that mom and pop businesses' survival depends on an internet sales tax, because to me that is logically inaccurate. Because that would mean that with an internet sales tax, all of the sudden people are going to start buying things locally rather than on the internet, completely ignoring the technological benefits and convenience of buying things on the internet.
Yeah,
Joe, go ahead.
When people say that this internet sales tax bill is going to save mom and pop businesses, shops, or whatever, it's not like they're getting the money from the sales tax.
Exactly. That's what I don't understand why they're making this.
How is it going to save it? It's just one more tax on the people.
That's a great point. It's also less purchasing power that somebody has to go into a mom and pop shop.
Also, like what I brought up the other week and what the interview with Bobby Long and the audio we played with Bobby Long, one of the things that was brought up was that they still pay for shipping and handling, but not just that. They pay taxes to the state government, federal government, just like every
that
other
they're
business.
In. Yeah.
Like they still pay taxes.
Right.
It may not be a sales tax, but to be honest, and just like what Bobby and I said, sometimes shipping and handling costs more than sales tax.
And in what goes into shipping, driving trucks, and what trucks drive on tires, and when you buy a tire, you pay a federal excise tax on tires. I mean, this idea, it's not contributing to roads and local infrastructure. Yeah, it is. I mean, when you ship something, you're paying a tax that's supposed to go to help maintain roads.
It also helps with more jobs.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to go to a mom and pop shop in town, I'm going to drive there in my own car. But if I buy something, I have to have it shipped to my house.
That's exactly
which
right.
Which means it's going to have to go through a processing plant, through a shipping company, and to my house that way.
So there are all these other there are all these other factors, all these other industries. And so what they're trying to correct a problem, and they're actually going to hurt. I just think anytime the government gets involved trying to change things, especially when they're just after more money, what they're going to do is get bad results elsewhere. I mean, you hear Milton Friedman at the beginning of my show, the maintenance of a free society is difficult. That's what we're fighting here, a free internet that's a technology that government would have never been able to wrap their heads around. If they had, it wouldn't have been free. They would have taxed it to death already. right? And we have this right now. We have e-fairness, but we have mayors of cities, and your local city may very well now be trying to thwart the will of the legislature. They've already voted down the internet sales tax, and yet the Municipal League is trying to convince cities to pass resolutions. They did it in Jonesboro last week, begging Asa Hutchinson to call for a special session to pass the internet sales tax, which failed just a few months ago. And your city may be doing this. Your city may have already passed the resolution. The Municipal League is simply a lobbying arm for government, for the cities. I think it shouldn't exist because all you're doing is trying to protect. All they do is when's the last time the Municipal League has lobbied for tax cuts? Somebody tell me that. Is that a thing? Has the Municipal League ever lobbied cities to pass resolutions to cut the taxes on the people of Arkansas? When they do that, I'll retract my statement that they're just lobbyists for government growth. Let's get to this article here. This is David Ferguson, conduitforaction.org. If you go to conduitforaction.org, on the right side of the page, the best thing to do would be to put your email address in the email bar and hit subscribe. That way you don't have to go to it every day if you don't want to, and you'll get notified in your email every time there's a new post. Internet sales tax proposal will hurt, not help, Arkansas small business. Now, here's another leap. We're talking about how the fact that it's not going to help you. And I completely agree with that. But David Ferguson, the former head of the Bureau of Legislative Research, he worked for the Arkansas state government for 30 years, he says it's actually going to hurt the small business owners that Walmart and the government are telling. All of a sudden, they're on the side of small business. First of all, the government, the state government, has done more to hurt small business by not reducing regulations and the tax burden on business owners and people in a tax bracket that actually pay taxes. So they don't care about you then. Why do they all of a sudden care about you now? It's only about increasing the amount of revenue to the government. That's what it's about. And yet there are some people that are believing, and hear me out, do you really think your business's survival depends on an internet sales tax? Like Joe said, that money doesn't go to you. You are saying that if there's an internet sales tax, now people are going to buy for you. So many people that they're going to give up the convenience of the internet and now get in a car and drive to your store. That's not going to happen for the most part. I'm not saying it's never going to happen. I'm sure with big ticket items, I mean, if you're talking about, a $20,000-$30,000 purchase or something like that, you might actually compare, and see. But you understand the point. Like, for most people, they're going to continue shopping on the internet because shopping on the internet is awesome. Shopping on the internet is the coolest thing. Anyway. Yeah, birthdays, Christmases, it's especially if you're like me and you're a procrastinator, you wait to the last minute. And at the same time, there's things that I have to go out and get locally. There's always going to be the need for a brick and mortar store. I guess my point is this. If you are a small business owner and you believe that an internet sales tax is going to save your business, then you must also believe that the only way to save your business is to destroy the internet. You know what I'm saying? Because that's essentially what your argument is as long as the internet exists, I won't be able to have a future in business. The Arkansas House of Representatives, listen to David Ferguson here, the Arkansas House of Representatives refused to go along with Governor Asa Hutchinson's goal of imposing an internet sales tax on your purchases from out-of-state businesses. But the tax and spend crowd has not given up. The Arkansas Municipal League is pushing cities to pass a resolution to support the tax. Their goal is to use your city to pressure the legislature into passing the tax. Several cities have been talked into passing the resolution. Mayors and aldermen think this is a way to get more tax money without having to take the blame for actually imposing the tax. Mayors and aldermen need to be aware how damaging this tax could be to their small businesses. Tax proponents claim the internet sales tax will level the playing field. So local mom and pop stores will be able to compete with out-of-state internet stores where people don't have to pay sales tax since the store has no facilities in Arkansas. Their claim of leveling the playing field doesn't match reality. Instead of leveling the playing field, they will be destroying the playing field for all but the largest businesses. The dream being sold is one where Arkansas passes an internet tax, and the tax would help Arkansas businesses compete because currently out-of-state sellers do not collect Arkansas sales tax unless the business has facilities in Arkansas. The dream is short-sighted and ignores the consequences of Arkansas passing such a tax. What were you going to say, Joe?
I was going to go back to what you said, what David Ferguson?
Yeah.
David Ferguson said here, instead of leveling the playing field, they will be destroying the playing field for all but the largest businesses. This is probably why Walmart's very, very much wanting this.
Yeah.
Because it's
exactly right.
Like their monopoly they already have on general goods is going to get even bigger.
Yeah. And let's not forget that there are mom and pop stores in Arkansas that only do business on the internet. Mom and pop e-retailers. This is why Amazon supports it all of a sudden, because they have the infrastructure to keep up with every tax code in every county and every state. So that's a huge part of this as well. It goes on. The reality is, if an Arkansas internet sales tax is upheld in court, other states would quickly follow suit. The idea of Arkansas imposing an internet sales tax without it opening the door for other states to also impose internet sales taxes is completely unrealistic. If the genie gets out of the bottle, David Ferguson writes, other states will quickly impose them too. Once other states pass similar taxes, Arkansas small businesses will have to collect out-of-state taxes, and compliance will be a huge burden on their ability to engage in interstate commerce. Arkansas small businesses cannot afford for Arkansas politicians to start an internet sales tax frenzy across the country. Now think about the regulatory things you'd have to comply with, Arkansas businesses, if you decide to ship something or somebody tries to buy something over the internet from your business, because there's a lot of mom and pop stores that do both. Many Arkansas brick and mortar stores have discovered they can supplement their business income by offering some products over the internet. Many in-home businesses in Arkansas rely exclusively on the internet to sell their products. Such businesses could be forced out of the internet market because they can't afford the cost and time required to comply with the internet sales tax of multiple states. Let me stop here. Don't think this isn't... Look, just like when Obamacare was passed and everybody lost their coverage, could you imagine if all of the sudden, because mom and pop shops who sell on the internet and have brick and mortar locations as well, can you imagine the choice, all of a sudden, the choice when you want to go buy something gets smaller and smaller and smaller to where the only option is Amazon. The only option is whatever the website Walmart bought, right? Because right now, there are small internet e-retailers all over the world, all over the country that are selling things. Can you imagine if they now all of a sudden, well, I can't offer this product anymore because I can't comply with everything. It's a nightmare. That's a real possibility. The maintenance of a free society is a difficult thing to maintain. It requires a self-denying ordinance, a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you'll spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere. Translation, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We're going to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions. This is ASA News, The Parrot. With breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock, I'm Bob Maloney. There are reports circling around from politicians who are in the know, and the same phrase keeps being used. That phrase is new revenue generation. Let's go to our reporter on the ground from the Capitol, Haley Hogwash. Haley?
Thanks, Bob. Yes, it seems the more politicians I talk to, the more I hear the phrase new revenue generation. We're trying to figure out exactly what that means, but you can rest assured it will be good for the people of Arkansas.
Haley, it certainly sounds like something good. I like how the phrase uses the word generation. That makes me think this has got to be doing something positive for our children in the future. Haley?
Yes, Bob, some new developments. I've just been speaking to some people who are here and are not politicians, and they tell me the phrase new revenue generation is actually code for a new tax.
Oh, my. Well, if this is true, Haley, that would add to a growing list of new taxes that have barely made any headlines at all, so it's best not to discuss them here on ASA News, The Parrot.
Yes, Bob, I know it's sure to make government officials angry that their phrasing of the new revenue generation has been changed by the people and called a tax increase.
I would expect an announcement from Mother Government soon to set the record straight. What is the new tax? Revenue generation, Haley?
Well, this new tax, a new revenue generation would add to a growing list. First, there was a revenue generation on movies, books, and songs that people download using the internet. And next, there was the tax increase. The new revenue generation on all purchases made using the internet. And now I'm told this new revenue generation is a tax on the people's patience.
I realize the people don't like it, Haley, but specifically, what is the new tax? Revenue generation.
No, Bob, I'm telling you, according to the activists here at the Capitol who have gathered and are listening to some radio broadcast, the revenue generation is literally taxing the patience of the people of Arkansas. I'm told the less patience you have with the government
better not tax our patience.
The more they will tax your patience and the more money you will owe at a later date. I'm also told the collection method on taxing your patients will be decided in a newly formed multicolored ribbon task force.
How taxing.
PHP parody.
Their quest for more revenue. It's the opium. It's an opium for legislators. It really is. Welcome back to the program. My name's Paul. The number 870-275-9799. So you got to understand something here about the internet tax that is not dead yet, even though it's been defeated multiple times. This is a ploy as well by big government backers in Washington, D.C., because if the states all start to go after their own policies, it will create a chaos, and then it will usher in Washington, D.C. to say, you know what, everything is so discombobulated, we're just going to need a national internet sales tax, which you have to go back. There used to be talk of a VAT. There used to be talk of a value-added tax, which would just be a national sales tax on everything for a long, long time. It's something that leftists and Democrats, we don't have enough revenue, we need a national sales tax. And it's a terrible idea, but essentially an internet sales tax, a national internet sales tax is what they want. And so if the states can start making these, these conflicts, these controversies, then they can say, you've got to come in and fix this problem. And that is, it's really sad that we have Republicans in Arkansas who ran on limited government, who don't want to implement it. They want to grow it. They want more of our money, and they don't truly understand the pitfalls of big government and the benefits of a limited one that relies on voluntary cooperation, that relies on a strict limit of what the government's supposed to be doing, not trying to reinvent. Oh, now the government needs to do this. Oh, now the government needs to do this. Oh, we're all enslaved to one another and responsible for each other's health care costs. More on that. Hour number 2 coming your way next.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
An online store just like that, and being an online business, they can go and they can be an out-of-state retailer to a market in Missouri, Tennessee, Louisiana, wherever they want to be, Bangkok. It doesn't matter, you know. So it doesn't matter. So they could be an out-of-state retailer if they wanted to be, and if they wanted to focus on that. Yeah. You know, but sometimes that's not their business model.
I know.
You know, that's not their business model.
And it's like,
and if it is, that's great. Go for it.
Yeah, and they say that they claim that it's e-fairness. I made the point yesterday, though, that it's not fair, though, because if you're in Indiana and all of a sudden now you're paying this unconstitutional sales tax, by the way, the Supreme Court, I mean, right now the precedent is you can't make them pay, so they're in many cases they're asking. Now, if the resolution is asking for them to collect the existing use tax that we're supposed to self-report, which I understand you said, Bobby, that you think that we should do away with that. If people, is that correct? That if we're considered tax cheats right now because of that?
Tax evaders.
Tax evaders.
Yeah, tax evaders.
Yeah.
Here's my suggestion. Here's what I did. You know, and my dad always said, you know, if you're gonna present a problem, offer a solution. So my solution is, let's just do away with it. You know, let's make Arkansas somewhere where people want to go and buy. Let's make Arkansas someplace where consumers have the power. You know, to where if we want to see our city grow. Matter of fact, we had it was called a revenue enhancement. You know, not long ago. In other words, it was across the board fee hikes, you know, on pretty much everything. But the part of it that got people just all up in arms was the stormwater drainage fee. You know, that was going to be assessed.
It's like $5 a person.
Yeah, I think it just sort of hit the fan and it died.
Washed away.
It washed away.
No pun intended.
Right now.
That's a lie.
You know, right now, but
intended.
it probably will come up again in the future.
They always do, right? See this whiteboard?
Do.
Our whiteboard. Run it till it passes. They do that down in Little Rock. That's for example, down in Little Rock, internet sales tax fails, right? So what do? Well, then you know, Asa, by the way, Governor Hutchinson says he doesn't want to call a special session. He doesn't want to call a special session to pass internet sales tax. But the Municipal League is getting all these cities to pass these resolutions. They want to get to like 300 out of 500 at least. And then Asa Hutchinson, this is what he's going to be. He's going to be like the girl that's like, you know, to her boyfriend of like 5 years. When are you going to propose to me? When are you going to propose to me? When are you going to propose to me? And then he finally says, all right, you know, will you marry me? And she's like, oh my goodness, you proposed. I'm so surprised. That's what Ace is. He's going to be like that. He's like, oh wow, I didn't realize all these cities wanted me to call a special session. And then he'll call the special session.
And the thing about it is, you know, these are going to be resolutions from the city council who are supposed to be a representation of the city in which they serve. So when he gets all those, he can say, hey, you know what? I wasn't going to call it, but the overwhelming, you know, cry for this, you know, I had no other choice. Had no other choice.
Yeah, I know. That's what they do.
It,
and then they run it till it passes. They take an idea that's defeated, and then they find a way to bring it back. And that never happens when we're talking about shrinking government. There was a great bill to really reform the way we do elections and ending special elections unless you have severe circumstances. And that's a really good, I feel like, method to make sure you have the most accurate reflection of what the consent of the governor is, because more people show up to vote when you have a general election than these special elections. And it failed, right? It failed because of a state representative who thinks he should be a senator. His name's James Sturch, and he walked out after he had voted for the bill. Then he walked out. It's a whole thing. We've talked about it many times. But notice that doesn't get run and run and run until it passes. They don't do that for things that limit government or protect the taxpayers. They only do it for things that are going to give the government more money. And it really comes down to this. You said, why in the world would I ever, as an elected official, knowing if it was put to a vote of the people, right, it would completely fail. Why would I ever then vote to do that? Well, I think it's because they're listening to different sources. They're not really listening to the people. They're listening to special interest.
Well, and I think they've also got their focus off of possibly what they need to have their focus on. When you become an elected official,
It's all right.
When you become an elected official, you're in essence a servant of the people.
Mm-hmm.
But when you become a servant of the tax dollar that does that, then you get that and you serve that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I think people just need to refocus
I
and
agree.
think, what am I here for? Am I here to secure as much money as I possibly can, even though I do it at the cost of what I told the people that I would vote for and do?
Yeah.
So I think you have to almost readjust yourself and say, okay, I'm here for the people. I'm here for the people that put me in the seat. I said before, I said Municipal League didn't put me here. They didn't vote me in.
That was good.
The people did. And there's absolutely no way on God's green earth that I was going to vote for that thing.
That was awesome. It was a great speech, and I love your facts. I love that you used some of David Crow's numbers.
I did.
About how big Arkansas government is and how we got to get that under control. But you were here, I guess you got here about 4:45.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. The phone number, if you want to call or text, 870-275-9799. It's the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. What that means is that we just want to see conservative ideas actually implemented, not just talked about to get elected, and then politicians come back and tell us how much smarter they all are now that they've been down at the Marble Palace in Little Rock. Hey, folks, welcome back to the program. We have with the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance and the chairman of the Faulkner County Tea Party, Mr. David Crow, joins us again. David, welcome back.
Paul, thank you so much. Glad to be back.
Yes, sir. Real quick, I just want to pick your brain. What are your thoughts on what's going on in D.C. now? They got to 51 votes to begin debate on the Obamacare repeal bill. Have you been following this?
I have been following it ever since about 8 years ago. And it is, well, I'll tell you what, that is a swamp up there, and I think that the sewer analogy is appropriate as well. But I have been following it. I am just stunned that it takes the Vice President of the United States to step in and cast the last vote to take it over the hump, for them just to have a conversation about something they said they were going to do repeatedly over 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
It is just beyond imagination. I am just shocked beyond belief, and and then just to hear some of the discussions that are ongoing on the radio and such of that nature, and it just it's so surprising. that
you're right, and I'm staring at a headline right now. This was published a little while ago. So Susan Collins is from Maine. She is not on board with the repeal idea. This is from Fox News. Susan Collins, a Republican from Maine, apologized to Representative Blake Farenthold, a Republican from Texas, after she was caught on a hot mic making derogatory comments about Farenthold at the end of a Senate hearing on Tuesday. Quote, neither weapons nor inappropriate words are the right way to resolve legislative debates, Collins said in a statement. I received a handwritten apology from Representative Farenthold late this morning. I accept his apology, and I offer him mine. So she's overheard on this hot mic calling him fat and unattractive. And listen, this is what dawned on me. It's essentially high school. High school never ends, and that's kind of an answer to your question as to why they can't get anything done up there. Because, I mean, high schoolers have trouble getting things done. They might have more luck than adults at this point. So, right,
and it's it's like herding cats, and they just don't seem to have a common message. You thought that they had a common message for 7 years, where they were going to repeal Obamacare. And now it was difficult to even get the 52 people to come together to just have an affirmative vote on just starting the conversation. So, but maybe it's going down the right path. The president had said that he understood that this was probably the hard vote. Now the conversation can begin, and they can start making some legitimate, put some legitimate options on the table, so that they can get on to, ratifying some bill that they then can either take to committee or take a pass back over to the House.
Yeah.
But it certainly is going to take a lot of effort on their part. Then you've got the August, the entire month, vacation staring them in the face, and I think it literally took that to actually get them to make a vote. And who knows what will happen now? If it has to bump to the House, I guess the House has indicated they would come back.
Yeah.
If the Senate would do something. So I don't know what's going to happen, but at least it's headed in the right direction. And then next up is a budget.
Yes.
And
taxes, hopefully.
Tax reform and tax cuts. And I'm excited about that.
I really hope they make the taxes retroactive. To this year.
I do too.
That'd be nice.
Hey, I was listening to some guys on the TV today. They said that the tax cuts that are proposed or they're being considered are actually not factored into the market yet. And then we've seen 29 new highs in the market ever since inauguration.
Yeah.
And this thing is smoking hot. But it's a earnings driven market right now.
Yeah.
And they said that 76% of the companies reporting now are exceeding expectations and forecast. So, like Donald Trump said, is we're going to get sick and tired of winning. I'm not sick and tired of winning yet. I could stand about 3 or 4 more years of winning.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'm excited to see. This is weird to say, how combative he is being and other people are being with the press. But, I mean, it has to happen at this point when you just look at how unfair their coverage is. And it's really just because they lost and they're trying to take their ball and go home. And, but that's interesting. So last week I had you on and we were talking a little bit about Governor Hutchinson. He's been asking Senator Bozeman, Senator Cotton to essentially try to find a way to secure Medicaid funding for Arkansas, even though, everybody knew that it was going to go away eventually. John Brummett, an Asa Hutchinson apologist now, which I never thought I would say that. He's, in the media throwing a fit about Senator Cotton, Senator Bozeman voting the way the people wanted him to vote. But we were on the program last week, David, and you were mentioning the fact that, you'll have to hear Senator Cotton say himself that he actually did what Asa was giving him credit for, which was, the Medicaid expansion block grant. And I reached out to their office, and they really didn't confirm or deny it. I think they were trying to be polite and essentially saying, hey, we've relayed Asa's concerns up the chain to leadership, but they did not take credit specifically for securing the Medicaid block grant for expansion, which ASA still doesn't support the bill. So, I mean, have you followed that anymore? And are you proud of how Tom Cotton and John Bozeman are doing exactly what they said they were going to do so far?
Well, I'm definitely proud that they voted to start the conversation for the repeal, and I'm thrilled about that. It'll be interesting to see what discussions occur throughout the rest of this week. I am a skeptic that the Senators Cotton and Bozeman did exactly what the governor mentioned that they did. I can't believe that they would do that and made it more difficult for them to pass the legislation that was being proposed by the Senate. But time will tell. But I'm really, really happy that Cotton and Bozeman voted in favor of the repeal legislation that's being considered right now before the Senate.
Yeah, me too.
It's a good thing. It's a very good thing that both of our senators stepped up and did that.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, what do you make of this? Like when John Brummett, I have this story. He's got a story out about irrelevancy. Yeah, John Brummett, irrelevancy in D.C., and in it he talks about how Tom Cotton and John Bozeman are betraying Governor Hutchinson if they go ahead and vote for this thing. I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, it's John Bozeman is upset because
you mean John Brummett? John Brummett.
Oh, John Brummett is upset because they're not going to keep Obamacare like it is in the state of Arkansas, and Asa Hutchinson is an advocate for keeping it the way it is. And for them to vote in favor of the repeal is contrary to what the governor desires. Mm-hmm. He wants to maintain Arkansas Works, and it's just it's regretful that our Republican governor is pushing that issue and wants to continue that, keep on that program in place that's put an additional 300,000 people on expanded Medicare.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that too is causes me to realize that we've got our own swamp in Little Rock, and we need to get it changed down there. It's just it's a big mess.
The exact quote in this piece that he wrote, he said it was a betrayal of his state. Now, earlier, I think in other publications or on Twitter, he talked about I don't know if he said betraying the governor, but he's dancing along those lines about. And I just how can you make that argument when John Brummett, one of the most liberal columnists in the state, he knows that John Bozeman campaigned twice against Obamacare and repealing it. He knows Tom Cotton campaigned in the House and then in the Senate. I mean, so how can he say our state's being betrayed when Republicans have been talking about getting rid of Medicaid expansion for several election cycles now? It just doesn't compute to me.
Well, he's a liberal. It's just what else can I say? The man is liberal, and he's going to advocate for the liberal agenda. The regretful thing is that out of that, in that same article, he lifts up Hutchinson for his position for the liberal Obamacare, and it's just, and if people truly stand back and just read it, it's amazing. Here's the other thing too: over the years, all of the legislature that voted in favor of private option, that wanted to continue to expand, and it has done so with Arkansas Works, have said all along, we're only doing this until the legislature, the Congress and the presidency makes the decision to repeal Obamacare.
Yes, exactly.
And so that's been their talking points for all these years of why they had to do what they did. But they need to fix it in Washington, D.C. Wow. And as soon as they try to fix it in Washington, D.C., what does our governor do? He comes out against what they're doing up there to fix it, which all of us have indicated for years and years and years. We need to kill Obamacare.
You're exactly right.
Just,
I'm really glad you made that point. It's an excellent point. I had forgotten about that because anytime you offered criticism at Republicans who went along with Obama's signature domestic achievement and expanded and created a welfare program, the largest expansion of government in Arkansas history. Anytime you did that, they say, hey, look, this is something we need to get the House, we need to get the Senate, we need to get the presidency, and then we need to repeal it. At the federal level, it's a D.C. problem. Even like John Burris on Twitter, if you ever criticize John Burris on Twitter, he would say, hey, just run for Congress, meaning it's not a state problem. You need to go to Congress if you want to deal with that. And so that's a great point. Now that we have all of that stuff, it's not good enough for the same faction, the same Republican faction in Arkansas, which I'm going to loop former representative and John Burris, who lost to Scott Flippo in with Asa Hutchinson, because it's all this kind of a cesspool there. You just raise a great point, David. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, it's the point, because they continue to make it to us, and it really it almost cut off the talking discussions back and forth with them throwing that back out at us, and so now we're to a point where that is going to occur, and the governor and many of the legislators are saying that they shouldn't do that. So that's regretful. Very regretful.
So we're talking with David Crow from the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance. The reason we're talking to him is because we've got the third annual Arkansas Tea Party Alliance convention coming up Saturday, September the 16th. We still got plenty of time to get tickets. Folks, if you want to get tickets, you go to our Facebook page. We've got it pinned at the top. It's facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. That's the Paul Harrell Program Facebook page. And there's a link to the Eventbrite page. Tickets are $30. And it's from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday, September the 16th, at the Doubletree. Is that correct?
That's correct. The Doubletree, and also the Robinson Auditorium, brand new banquet facilities. It is going to be one heck of a day. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of good opportunity to mix with the folks from around the state. So please come out.
Yeah, and the theme is always liberty doesn't matter. That's what people are going to be talking about. Of course, you and I, David, we believe liberty does matter. It's what a crazy idea.
It does. Yeah, it's a crazy idea. And boy, I tell you, I meant to say this earlier. The Calvin Coolidge Awards banquet was top drawer the other night. Super, super, super.
I had a blast
and,
as well.
Really enjoyed that. But, boy, I tell you what, the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance Convention is the place to be on September the 16th. And I hope people will come out and enjoy the Mike Gallagher and Pastor Iverson Jackson and the legislative panel of Bill Sullivan and Linda Collins Smith. And another senator hopefully will join them. And then AFP, Family Council, Acre, and Conduit, we're going to be there with us, and should have a great, great day.
Yeah, it's going to be great, and you don't have to be a member of a Tea Party to attend. If you're conservative, if you want limited government, if you want to see that positive change, you're going to meet a lot of great people, a lot of great minds, and get a ton of great information. It's the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance, September 16th, and tickets, you can get them at facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. Just click on the link that's pinned at the very top of the page. David Crow, as always, sir, you have a mind focused on liberty, and it's always enlightening to talk to you.
Thank you, Paul. Look forward to next week, man.
All righty. Folks, we're going to take a break. The Liberty Machine that we're building here rolls on, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions. Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
Eight 870-275-9799. That is the telephone number if you want to contribute to the program. Oh, man, this whole healthcare thing, folks, I would love for it to be over, quite honestly. I would love it to be over, but it's not, so we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep telling you the truth, everything that's happening, everything that's not happening. I want to talk real quick about this John Brummett piece that we were discussing earlier. And it's quite amazing when you look think about the left and what the left represents. Specifically with healthcare, they want a single payer system. So what does it say? I said last hour that if Tom Cotton and John Bozeman are feeling the heat from one of the most liberal columnists in the state of Arkansas, John Brummett, that's a badge of honor. That's an award you should be wearing. Articles like this, the one, John Brummett's most recent one, John Brummett, Irrelevancy in D.C., John Brummett's article like this, we should have had probably 50 of these against Asa Hutchinson since he's been in office, if Governor Hutchinson was really a conservative. Instead, John Bozeman, Tom Cotton being targeted by John Brummett. And, he starts off today, brings Chapter 3 in the recently unfolding narrative we might call Profiles in Irrelevance. Those are occupied by without consequence by tall-talking Tom Cotton and no-talking John Bozeman. The Senate bill, this is in the middle of his article, the Senate bill eventually. Now listen, because this is why John Brummett is sticking up for ASA, because ASA is sticking up for a welfare program, even one where he wants work requirements. ASA does not want to see this program go away because insurance companies don't want to see this program go away because it's a guaranteed revenue stream of taxpayer money. Quote, the Senate bill eventually would remove 300,000 poor people in the state from our private risk pool through Medicaid expansion. That's why the left is so upset. Now, yes, did they confuse health care with health insurance? Absolutely. Of those 330,000 people that we're paying insurance premium for every month, to the tune of $500 per person on the program, 330,000 times $500 a month. That's how much it's just costing. And the insurance company, how many of those people go the entire year and never go to the doctor? How many of those people go ahead and go to the emergency room anyway when they need to go to the doctor? You understand what a cash cow, what a scam that is? If you would have expanded traditional Medicaid, or expanded Medicaid, you only pay when somebody goes to the doctor. We're paying insurance companies every single month, and people aren't even going to the doctor. Doesn't make any sense unless you're Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then you're like, this is a great idea. And, of course, Asa Hutchinson, he thinks it's a good idea as well. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
You're listening to my segment on Obamacare, private option, things like that. But mostly about just this, the idea of incentives and welfare programs.
Right.
And you were telling me something. Now, you're going to have to show your age here. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But you said
I'm okay with that.
All right, that's fine. You're a kickboxer. By the way, Bobby Long is a kickboxer. So if you try to pass the internet sales tax, he's just going to kick it in the face. In the face. All right. So you graduated from A-State.
I did.
In 1989. 89. I thought you said 85.
Well, I graduated BIC in 85.
Okay.
Went to college. It was during my college years.
Well, in 85, I was 1. So.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, all right.
You've already said that.
I know.
See,
I know.
that's the
I just wanted to say it again. I wanted everyone to know that. All right.
That's terrible.
Our producer, our board op, he wasn't alive then.
You were not alive in 85?
93?
Oh, wow.
You were born in 93.
Oh,
my goodness. Okay, now I feel old.
Okay,
all right.
The tail end of 93, December 30th of 93.
So it's really 94. Okay, so
That's getting worse.
So tell me about what you were a hard worker. You had a job while you were in school.
Right. I grew up, a small Mississippi County town, Leachville. And gosh, I didn't know anything but work. My dad, I remember when I would mow the churchyard, he would take me out, drop me off with the lawnmower, and then he would go off somewhere, and I would just be sitting there with the lawnmower. And I would mow the churchyard. He'd come back and pick me up, And so I was in the cantaloupe fields when I was 14, graduated to watermelons when I was 16. So I didn't, I just worked for my money, because I knew that if I didn't, I wouldn't have any.
Yeah.
So when I got to college, first thing I did was I got a job at a grocery store. And the summer before I started school, I started working at a grocery store. And when I was going to college 2 years in, before I would go to work, if I had the opportunity, I'd go down to Earl Bell Community Center and play basketball. Well, I was down there with some friends, and I was playing basketball one day, and I noticed there were a lot of adults out there playing ball, and I got to looking around. I thought, it's the middle of the day. You're supposed to be at work. So I had to talk to some of them. I said, well, what do you do? Do you work at night? What do you do? I said, no, I'm on disability.
Back in 1985.
I said, you're on disability? You just dumped. How does that work?
Oh gosh, what a problem! I mean, does that just
and I had to leave early so I could get to work.
Yeah.
And then go to school.
Wow. That's crazy. What and see and that's an issue. That's an issue. That's people exploiting the system and things like that. And anyway, so Bobby Long, I appreciate it, sir, coming on the program. I appreciate what you did. And where does it go from here? I mean, now it's past 8 to 4, and hopefully Asa won't call a special session.
He won't. But the good thing about it is, I'll be watching and I'll be looking.
Yeah.
And I'll be looking over things. And if there's something that comes up like this in the future, it just doesn't have to be about this.
Yeah.
It can be about anything.
If there are any city councilmen listening across the state right now, and your city's trying to do something similar, going to do the municipal league's bidding, and I would love to talk to you. I'd love to have you on and let me know what we can do to help.
I believe that video is even up on your
Yeah.
Is it up on your
Yeah, we've got Bobby
clip?
Long's clip, his video, and what he said and the information he had is up at our Facebook page. I retweeted it as well. It's facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. Check it out. Alderman Bobby Long, we appreciate it, sir.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to have you on again soon. Folks, we're going to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Go back and listen to previous shows? Apple users can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Don't have an Apple device? Head on over to paulharrell.com and click on Podcast. It's free and available 24/7 because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
Real quick, last note on healthcare this hour. Just wanted to let you know. I know you've heard about it, but the parents of Charlie Gard have now agreed to allow the government to take the life support off that's now sustaining their child, turn it off. They've withdrawn their legal bid to send Charlie to the United States. Couple was withdrawing a bid to have Charlie sent to the United States, where a doctor had offered to try and treat his rare genetic condition. The decision came after new medical tests showed the 11-month-old who has brain damage and cannot breathe unaided has irreversible muscular damage. The case is now about time. Sadly, time has run out. Both parents wept inside the packed courtroom at the the High Court in London as lawyer Grant Armstrong made the announcement. So, I know the people on the left say that. See, the system worked. Now, there's some that'll say that the system worked. He was untreatable to begin with. Finally, the doctor in the U.S. came around. These folks were delayed for weeks. The experimental treatment was delayed for weeks, and you'll never convince me that the government in this situation made things better. You'll never convince me that a bunch of bureaucrats should have been able to keep parents from trying an experimental treatment. And I know there's a lot of people out there in the Republican establishment that would agree with me. I just want you to know you need to stop perpetuating the problem here in Arkansas. You need to stand. And we have a lot of them here in Arkansas that don't want to stand. And it's a travesty, the road you're leading us down. It's destroying this country. Telephone numbers 870-275-9799. Do not think this can't be our reality here in this country, because it can be. That's why it's important for them in D.C. to get it right. But that's why it's also necessary for us to realize that Governor Asa Hutchinson being to the left of Mitch McConnell, all because of federal money supporting a welfare program for able-to-work adults, is not even the truly needy. The fact that Asa can't recognize the dependency that Obamacare was designed to set up to get us to a single-payer health care system, yada, 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 death panels, like in the UK with Charlie Gard, is... I don't have a word for it. I just don't have a word for it. It's disgusting is what it is. Okay. Just wanted to give you that report. It's very sad. Yesterday we talked to you about different techniques that are used to grow government. And I listed 5 of them. And there's now a 6th that has been developed. And the 6th principle is pretty good, but I'm going to go back over the first 5 and then give you the 6th. Number 1 is the matching principle. Now, the matching principle is it's when a larger government gives a smaller government money, but requires the smaller government to come up with some funds in order to qualify for the money. Oftentimes, this is the local governments, the smaller governments' own tax dollars just being regifted to them with these strings attached that they have to find money elsewhere. Now, this is very enticing because the politicians say, I'm just going after your own tax dollars, but I need to raise your taxes, or I need to adopt this responsibility that's only going to be 10% now. But then but we're going to build such a program, people are going to become accustomed to this certain level. And then when the larger government's funding goes away, you're expected to raise taxes even more to keep the current level of government where it is. It's called the matching principle. It's the number one way. It's number one on the list for a reason, because this is a way that government grows. It's a technique that government grows. There's a story out of Fort Smith that illustrates this perfectly. Arkansas Airport headline, Dave Hughes, Arkansas Airport awarded $3.13 million grant. Listen to this. The Federal Aviation Administration announced Monday the award of $3.13 million grant for construction of a fire station at the city's airport. The grant is one of four the agency doled out to Arkansas airports Monday, totaling more than $4.4 million. The other airports and grant amounts were El Dorado, $196,564, Monticello, $460,000, and Texarkana, $651,798, according to the FAA news release. Michael Griffin, the director of the Fort Smith Regional Airport, said the airport needs a new fire station because the Arkansas Air National Guard's 188th Wing discontinued its firefighting operation, which also provided firefighting services for the civilian airport after it lost its flying mission in 2014. So, as much as we love the military, as much as I love them in the National Guard, they certainly represent the government, right? Here's a classic example. This is perfectly. I mean, it's kind of another layer to the matching principle. Government's fulfilling a need. Now, a larger government's no longer fulfilling the need, and so now we get another grant from a larger government, but now we have to come up with the money. Because the next statement here is, quote, Griffin said the airport must chip in 10% of the total to match the federal grant. Once the agency releases the money, probably in a few weeks, the airport can give the notice to proceed with the project. In addition to building the station, utilities will have to be extended to the site. An expense, Griffin said, will be covered by the grant. It will take about 12 to 14 months to complete construction. The Air National Guard allowed the airport to temporarily use its fire station until it could build its own. So, I mean, gotta have ways to put out fires at airports. I get it. I hear you. I just wanted to let you know. Less than 24 hours, then we covered our points of these techniques that government uses to grow. We have one right here. Number one on the list is the matching principle. Number two on the list is to, quote, prove, end quote, what the people want, so the government has to provide it. Now, their proof is often very weak. It's not real proof at all. But you'll hear the politicians come out and say, it's what the people want. We see this right now in Arkansas with the Municipal League getting cities to their councilmen to vote for resolutions to beg Asa Hutchinson to call a special session to rehash the internet sales tax that's already failed. If they can get to a majority of cities in Arkansas, they will now have the, quote, proof that the people want us to grow government, so we have to provide the growth for them. Number two on the list is to prove, or is to have, we'll just call it false proof. Number one is the matching principle. Number two, false proof. Number three on the list of techniques, ways politicians grow government without you knowing to override the will of the people, is to disguise what they're actually trying to do. The example here, again, passing issue 3 last time. We all voted on it. It was another deceptive ballot title. It was about economic development, they said. Asa Hutchinson went around cutting ads saying it was for jobs, when in reality it was to issue debt. You see, if Asa had gone around campaigning the state, cutting campaign commercials saying that you need to vote for issue 3 because it will enable us to go into debt and we'll be able to finance more jobs, because he still thinks that this is going to create jobs. But if he were to have been honest and said, we're going to issue more debt, we need the ability to issue an unlimited amount of debt, which is what it did. That's what we all voted on. I voted against it. Many of you in the audience voted against it. Many Arkansans just read the ballot title and took their elected officials that put it on the ballot for their word, and they were frauded. It was a fraud. It passed, and now we have, quote, economic development galore, right? We can finance it. We can go into debt an unlimited amount in this state now. That's an example of disguising what they're trying to do, because if Asa had been honest about it, I think it would have been a much closer vote, and people would have said, you know what? I don't think debt is a good thing for future generations. Number four way government has a technique to grow is using pain point politics. Again, babies will die, bridges will collapse, dirty air, dirty water. Pain point politics. You understand. It's also really, number 4 is a good way to keep government from shrinking. If you actually have the votes like we do, or, the Obamacare thing, they want to use pain point politics to keep government from shrinking. But they also use it in order to get government to grow. Case in point, the Republicans, saying that the working poor would be getting Medicaid expansion, when in reality 40 to 50% don't work at all. But they use the working poor, this term, the working poor, and they negate the fact that if you work 30 hours a week, you wouldn't qualify for the welfare program. When you think of working poor, you think of somebody working 40 hours a week and barely getting by. Well, you still make enough money to where you're not qualifying for welfare. So, anyway, pain point politics. That's what they do. Barack Obama was great at it. We need to grow government because I got a letter from little Susie who these are her circumstances. Pain point politics help me grow government, right? Obama was great at it. Number 5 technique to grow government would be economic development, which is a complete scam. And we detail to this. Anytime you hear it, the way they use it is a scam. They don't want to get rid of regulations. They don't want to slash your taxes. They want to take your tax money, and they want to give it away to private corporations, and they claim that jobs are created by that. There are studies done by the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics at the University of Central Arkansas in Conway. They did extensive studies, every study since 1980, and they have a few studies that show an actual economic growth. Most of them show no economic growth, and more studies show that there's actually a negative impact than there are studies that show that there's a positive impact. So this is not a way to develop our economy. It's a way to pad the pockets with guaranteed taxpayer money to private corporations. It's also a way to promote politicians' profile because we have a lamestream press, a lapdog press that mindlessly reports X amount of jobs are going to be created in 20 years because of Asa Hutchinson or because of Mike Beebe or because of whoever's there at the press conference. The headlines are and then people falsely believe, oh, he's bringing jobs to my area. He's bringing economic growth to my area. That is not the case in these situations. Let's see, by the way, the Big River Steel vote. We need to get into there's some scorecards out there, at least one. I don't know if it was AFP's or not, that didn't seem to score the Big River Steel vote, which was interesting to me. Number 6. This is the new one. We went over these 5. The other day. We've added a 6th. Now, this is a good one. You ready for this, Joe? Number 6. And I think we're going to cut it off at 6. Now, we may have more. We may end up getting to top 10. But I think this may be pretty well covered. We may add some more. Government growing by the following techniques. Number 1, matching principle. Number 2, a false proof. Number 3, disguise what they're trying to do. Number 4, pain point politics. Number 5, economic development. And number 6, projection and deflection. You know what projection is? Projection is when you accuse your opponent of doing the exact thing that you are actually doing. And that's what it is. So by projecting your motives on someone else, you are able to deflect from the actual criticism that is due you, that you are due. And I have a few examples, but go ahead, Joe, first.
There's also another way you can take this, the projection and deflection. There's one thing that Asa Hutchinson did not too long ago about Arkansas's GDP.
Yeah, about our gross domestic product.
Yeah, about
our
the rice
job. Oh, yeah, you remember that?
Projected numbers.
That's actually projection numbers.
Projected numbers.
That's funny. I like that.
And deflected the fact that our GDP wasn't actually growing at all.
Yeah, Joe, you've got a great memory back there in the booth. What he's referring to is, was it 2016? It had to be 2016 because you weren't here in 2015, were you? So it was in 2016, our first quarter numbers came out for GDP. And you had one guy from the Farm Bureau who was like, I don't understand why these numbers, and we made national headlines, and the national headlines were Arkansas has got this amazing GDP. Well, they were counting rice production in February that hadn't even been grown yet. Those were in the numbers. So we had better GDP growth than any state around us. You got all the national play, but they fudged the numbers, or at least I believe they did. And there was at least one guy at the Farm Bureau that was like, I don't know why we would count rice that's not been grown yet. Counting your chickens before they hatch. Exactly. I don't know why we would do that. Well, I know why. Because somebody needed a political win. That's why. You see, you're getting information here that you're not going to get anywhere else, folks. You're just not. You can look all those headlines up, by the way. Demgas would be the best place to start because they were the ones that were reporting the GDP growth. And their headlines were, if I remember correctly, they were so maddening because they just report, well, GDP growth, and then in the body of the story, you find out, well, there are some skeptics here that don't know why the number is what it is, and why would you count on rice production that hasn't yet been even planted in the ground, for goodness sakes. This was in March. It hadn't even been planted yet. It's unbelievable. What it really shows you is just a complete lack of knowledge of, like, resources and things. All right, go ahead.
And the inability just to use one's brain.
Number 6, projection and deflection. I'll give you a couple of examples. The left, one criticism that they throw my way and they throw Conduit's way, and again I get sick and tired of talking about it, is they say, you guys are just such a single issue. You're single issue. Just Medicaid expansion. Well, it was the largest expansion of government in Arkansas history. You did say you were going to end the program. I'm talking about Senator Jim Hendren. He said he was going to end the program and didn't. He said his bill was going to end the program and it didn't. You did say all these things, so yeah, we're just kind of trying to hold your feet to the fire. You said that you were against it, you campaigned against it, you're not against it. It's been a complete disaster. Asa Hutchinson is now for it. It's to the left of Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan on it. Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. This is just your single issue. This is just your single issue. That's a projection and a deflection, because the reality is, in the real world, our entire budget, because of them, for the foreseeable future, is being held hostage because of a welfare program that they refused to get rid of, and many of them helped implement, for able-to-work adults with no kids who are not working. You see what they do there? You're just a single-issue person. Well, hang on a second. You're projecting and deflecting the fact that you are the one that has conscripted us financially to this point because of that single issue. So you're actually the single issue people. Here's another example of projection and deflection, the number 6 way that government, the technique that is used to grow government. Republicans in leadership who are pro-tax, who want to increase your taxes, especially with the internet tax, they like to throw around the idea that you're a tax cheat if you're not voluntarily paying the use tax that's currently uncollectible. The government doesn't have the means to collect it because they'd have to police your internet purchasing history. You got Dan Douglas, who mentioned that on the House floor. VictoriaSecret.com or Zappos.com or yeah, Dan, we get it. Any place you'd buy on the internet, Dan. Okay, Dan Douglas, who needs to be primaried, by the way. But here's the funny thing about that. They project, you're a tax cheat, i.e., they completely ignore the fact that Senator Jake Files doesn't pay his taxes. According to these headlines that I've been looking at since January, is either the most unlucky businessman in the world or, well, you be the judge. And he's the chair of the Revenue and Taxation Committee. Projection and deflection. We got to take a break. Back in just a moment.
If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Bob Maloney here from ASA News, The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a Blue Ribbon Task Force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a Blue Ribbon Legislative Task Force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who's deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with the Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. P.C. Wrights, and I represent Target, and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white.
I agree with Mr. P.C. Wrights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fabulous. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News, The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol Dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody.
Still got these reports of Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump. Donald Trump really unhappy with Jeff Sessions. I'm going to be watching that. That's interesting. There's also a Trump rally, apparently, that's developing over in Ohio. Did you hear? Did anyone see Donald Trump to the Boy Scouts? It's pretty incredible. And, of course, the media's like, well, it's just like a Hitler Youth rally. Okay, well, I guess people still keep tuning in and trusting you. There's no motivation to actually grow the trust back, that they've lost with the American people, obviously. Over at paulharrell.com, I want to remind you, you can get our Liberty Machine t-shirts. Just click on store, buy them. They're $20 and shipping is free. That's Liberty Machine t-shirts. You're going to want them. And it's at paulharrell.com. Also, our podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes, at the iTunes store, or at SoundCloud. And, folks, we'll see you tomorrow. Arkansas, be safe.